All right, welcome to Chapter 2 review. I have taken your Chapter 2 review packet or page, and I'm going to just do a few highlighted problems, starting with number 2. It says plot -3 and 7 on the number line, but notice these bars around it. That means the absolute value of -3 and the absolute value of 7 on the number line. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to place a 0 on my number line, somewhere in the middle. And then I'm going to count to the first number. Well, looking here, the absolute value of -3 is going to be a +3, because remember, absolute value is the distance away from 0 on the number line. So I'm going to count up 3 in the positive direction. 1, 2, 3. Mark it with a 3, but it's not actually a point until I put a dot on there. The dot needs to be where the two lines cross. Then I have the absolute value of 7. The absolute value of 7 is also 7, so I'm going to go up a few more spaces. So I go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Write 7 underneath. It's not actually there until I put the point on there. That's all you need to do for number 2. Number 3, when you see the directions that say write an integer for each situation or evaluate each expression, the first part is what we're doing for the first problem, number 3. It says write an integer. Remember, integers are positive and negative whole numbers, so they're not going to be numbers like 3.6 or 2/5. They're going to be whole numbers like 43, or an integer would be -43. So we're looking at the words, a profit of $43. You need to know that profit means you're making money, which would be a positive thing. We're going to have a positive 43. I don't include symbols when I write integers. It's just going to be the number. Down here, this is where it wants us to evaluate the expression. That means do the math. For this problem, there's absolute value bars. Remember, for the absolute value of -3, that is just 3 away from 0, so that's a 3, plus the absolute value of +3 is also 3 away from 0, so that's 3. I remember these as thinking of a car wash. It's like the number went through a car wash and it washes away the negative on the number. So I take my 3 plus 3 and I get the answer of 6. Let's go down to the next learning target. Compare positive rational numbers using the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to compare numbers. So I'm going to compare in number 8, -24 and 32. -24 on a number line would be 24 spaces away from 0, so let's say it's about there. And -32 would be even further down away from 0 on the number line. And I know that my numbers further to the right are higher numbers and the numbers further to the left are lower numbers or smaller numbers. So I know that -24 is actually larger than -32 because of that negative symbol. Let's go down to the graphing part. Here it asks us to find the ordered pair for point A. I'm going to look over at the graph and I see points A and C on my graph, and I need to know that the first number is the number that I move left or right. So I'm first starting horizontally. I start at the origin, which is point 0, 0, and I'm going to move to the left 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. That's at -4. That's my first number in my directions or my ordered pair, -4. And then from this line I move down just 1 over to the -1, so the second number in my ordered pair is -1. You do the same thing for C, only this time it's multiple choice, so it should be hopefully a little bit easier. Then it asks you to graph a point. It wants us to graph point E. Point E is the ordered pair 4, -3. Remember, move to left, move to the right, up, down, fight, 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 which means we're moving to the left or right first. Since 4 is a positive number, we're going to move to the right. And then -3, since it's negative, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, and put the dot where the two lines cross. And then we're going to name that dot, or that point, E. Underneath it says quadrant and wants to know which quadrant is that in. Well, remember, this is quadrant 1, written Roman numerals, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Since point E is in quadrant 4, I'm going to write a 4 next to this. Okay? On the back side, we have adding integers, subtracting integers, multiplying and dividing integers, and each one asks you to explain how you do it. So I'd like to explain first. I'm not going to write it down, but I'm going to tell you how to do each one and what I'd like to see in those spaces. On your test, you're going to be asked the same questions, so it'd be good to have these memorized. In order to add integers, if they're the same signs, you add the numbers and keep the sign. And if they're different, then you subtract the sign, or you subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. We sang a song, same signs add and keep, different signs subtract, keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact. You can write the lyrics to the song on how you add integers. This first problem says -7 plus -3. So since they're the same sign, what I mean by same sign is that they're both negative numbers, we're going to add those. 7 plus 3 is 10. Same signs, add and keep. I'm adding them, and I'm keeping the sign negative. Be sure to make your negative signs very clear on your test. If we can't see them and the answer is supposed to be negative, it will be marked wrong. Next, 18 plus -11. Since this is a positive number and this is a negative number, I'm going to subtract those two. 18 minus 11 is 7. Now I'm going to take the sign of the higher number. 18 is higher than 11, so it's going to be positive. Alright, moving to subtraction. The rules for subtraction was to KFC, or keep, flip, change. That means I'm going to keep the first number the same, change the minus to a plus, and make the third number, or the second number, its opposite. So the opposite of the opposite of 8 is -8. Now I'm going to go back and add. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. So I'm going to subtract 8 minus 7, and I get 1. Keep the sign of the higher number. 8 is higher, so it's -1. Moving on to number 15 on the back side. We're going to do the same thing. Keep, flip, change. 18 stays the same. I keep it. Flip the minus to a plus. I change it. I flip it. And I'm going to change -13 to +13. This is simple now. All I do is add. 18 plus 13 is 31. And I'm done. The rules for multiplying and dividing, we used a triangle where there were two minuses and a plus, and you can cover up the two things that you have, and the one left over will be what your answer is. So to find out if your answer is positive or negative, you will cover up the two numbers that are in the problem, and whatever is left over is what your answer is. Now, I would like more than just a triangle shown on your test here. I want you to actually explain, how do you use the triangle so that I know that you know how it's used to come up with your answers. If you look at number 18, it doesn't look like there's a problem there, but it's actually -7 times 9. So whenever there's no symbol in between, that's telling you to multiply -7 times 9. I'm just going to multiply those two numbers. I get 63, and then I know I have a negative and a positive. When I cover up my negative and positive, I have a negative left over, which means that my answer is negative. For -3 squared, that's just saying I'm taking -3 times itself 2 times. So -3 times -3 is 3 times 3 is 9. A negative times a negative is a positive. So it's a positive 9. Same rules apply for division. Here I have -18 divided by -9. I'm just going to take 18 divided by 9 to get 2, and if they're both negative, cover them up, it's a positive answer. This kind of looks like a fraction on number 22, and it is, but all fractions are actually division problems. So we're going to take 36 divided by 6. I get 6 as my answer. The top is negative, the bottom's positive, so I'm going to cover up my positive and negative, and my answer is negative. The very bottom, the last two that I'm going to do for you are these: evaluate the expression if, and this is important, A equals 12, B equals -6, and C equals -3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this problem where I have A written where the A is and C written where the C is. So A was 12, I'm going to write it as 12, plus C. C was -3, so I'm going to write -3. All divided by 3. When you have a problem like this, you're going to do the stuff on the top first and then divide. So I have 12 plus -3. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, which these are, subtract. I subtract, I get a 9 over 3. Keep the sign of the higher number, which is positive, then you'll be exact. What is 9 divided by 3? It is 3. And the last one, BC. B is -6 and C is -3. If there's no symbol in between, it means to multiply. -6 times -3 is just 6 times 3, which is 18. And a negative times a negative, if we use our triangle, it is a positive. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have more questions, make sure to either write them down or remember them. We can go over questions on Friday, and we will have just a little bit of time to go over a few last-minute questions again on Monday. Good luck. Make sure, if you're not sure how to do something, you can always use the Online Learning Center. It's connected to both my webpage and Miss Tapper's webpage. And you may also just YouTube: how do you add integers? How do you subtract integers? How do you multiply? How do you divide? How do you evaluate an expression? Almost all of those have great videos that you can watch. Don't forget to look at the personal tutors and take the lesson self-checks. Those are both included in the Online Learning Center, and you should be ready for the test on Monday.